Welcome to Backstage Money, real world finance for musicians. I'm your host, Jason K. Powers. This is where music and money collide. Honest stories and practical lessons from people who make it work. Let's get to it. Today, I am joined by Michael Kalel, bassist for the band Pillar, hard rock band behind songs like Fireproof and The Reckoning, which earned Grammy nominations. Pillar released 9 studio albums, 3 EPs, and what do you got? 24 whopping singles. That's a lot. And you guys won multiple Dove Awards, even has an exciting announcement here at the end of the show, which I'm excited to share with everybody too. Michael offstage has even been a business owner, involved in fitness, acting, modeling. There's no grass growing under your feet. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jason. And as far as all the stats, you know better than me, man. A lot of that stuff I forgot. So thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What do you not do? Is there anything you don't do? I was reading up on you a little bit, and you got your hands in quite a few things, you know.
I'm not very good at fixing things or working on my car. I can make a mean hamburger and a steak though, and I'm a pretty good dad. But
there you go. Well, Michael, hey, before we get into the nitty gritty of stuff, I always love to hear from people. You know, how did you get started? How did you get into music? You know, I heard there was maybe even a little bit of a Bill and Ted story in there somewhere way back when too.
Yeah, man, that's exactly how it happened. So back when I was about 15 or so, man, I saw that movie Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure came out, and it just really inspired me to want to learn to play electric guitar. You know, so I just thought about it a lot, and it took a little bit, but I finally talked my mom into getting me a guitar. And my worship pastor, his name was Chris, at our little local church in Southern California that I went to, taught me how to play, and I started playing on the worship team at church. And of all the denominations, it was a Lutheran church as well, which you normally wouldn't think they would have a worship band with an electric guitar, but they did, because the worship leader, his dad was the pastor. So that's how I learned how to play. And at an early age, even 15, 16, I was the guy putting the bands together. I'd find other musicians. We'd practice in my garage. You know, I'd try to book local shows, and it just built from there into something I always had a heart for and knew. I just knew that it was what I was supposed to do. You know, it seemed like a long shot, and I had no idea what I was doing, especially back then. But I just kept at it, and because I just knew in my heart it was going to lead somewhere, and it eventually did.
That's awesome. You hear that quite a bit from band members and who are really making it, who've made it kind of, you know, and made a career out of it at some point, and that is a common theme, right? Just early on, it was like I really just knew, you know. And you have that hardwired passion, I would say, right? You were designed that way. You know?
Yeah, I just never gave up. I mean, that's really the secret.
Yeah.
There's no one way to break a band. There is no one way. There's so many ways. Every band can have their own path. But the real key is just not to give up. You're going to hit a lot of roadblocks, and a lot of things are going to go wrong. Your van or your bus is going to break down. Your show's going to get canceled. Someone's not going to pay you. Band members are going to quit. You're going to fight. Just all that stuff's going to happen at some point. You just have to decide not to quit, because you learn from each experience. And if it's what you're meant to do, you know, it'll eventually happen.
That's great. So take me back, and you're in high school and trying to start your own bands and things like this. How did Pillar in particular get started?
So I was always doing Christian bands when I was younger in Riverside, California in high school. Eventually, when I graduated high school, my mom moved us to Kansas, because that's where she was raised. Middle of nowhere, Kansas, too. Like a town of 5,000 people. I'm talking brick roads. The roads there the cars drove on were bricks. There's still bricks right now out there. And in that town, there was no Christian musicians. So I just jammed with the guys that were there, you know, and we just did, you know, whatever we could do, just secular stuff. There really wasn't places to play, so we were just writing and trying to put bands together. And I eventually put a band together called Mishap. We were just playing rock and just playing local clubs and stuff. Eventually, we got booked at a festival in Dighton, Kansas, small town out in the middle of nowhere. But this young promoter had all these bands booked and put on a great event. And that same day that my band Mishap played, a brand new band called Pillar was playing. Now, they didn't have a bass player, though, okay, at the time. And there was early members. And I remember talking to Rob. I met Rob, our singer, that day, and we were talking. And he's like, yeah, we need a bass player. And I remember watching them thinking, wow, they're really good. He has a good voice. I saw a lot of potential there. And he said, yeah, we could use a bass player. And they had just started. So I something I thought about and prayed about. And I remember driving from college to my apartment and just getting really just hit in the heart, by God that, hey, you need to be in Pillar. So I pulled over and had to just feel that and think about it. And the band that I started, Mishap, basically, if I'm not in that band breaks up. So I had to call those guys and say, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm going to leave this band and join this band Pillar. And I took on that bass role and kind of kept my mouth shut early on. But soon the business side of me couldn't be contained. And I was like, okay, guys, we need press kits. We need photos. I'm going to start booking shows. I started just, putting everyone to work when it came to marketing and business. And, kind of everyone fell in their role at that point. And that's when the band really started getting busy.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a minute. Before the show started, we were talking about kind of the many hats you wear and have worn throughout your Pillar career. So break that down for me. Like, how did that pan out for you? I mean, what were you doing early on? How did that transition as you guys got bigger, and what roles you're playing now? Maybe kind of take us through the whole process.
So first, I need to put a disclaimer that every band member has their role and they're vital. It wasn't a Michael Kalel show, not by any means. I had my roles, but the band wouldn't have worked without everybody doing their part. My part, I have always been gifted with just marketing, business, booking shows. That's just kind of been my specialty. I have a drive for it, and I always did, even at that young age. Now, also, I want everybody to remember that the music business 20 years ago, we started the band in 1999 and started getting big traction in 2000. Music business 25 years ago is a lot different than it is now. So when we started, I didn't have a laptop and I didn't even have a cell phone. I was going to the computer lab at school, and eventually I got a home computer at our apartment, or our little band house that we had, and had a big computer and was using a landline, or I was on a payphone if we were out doing shows. So doing business back then was a completely different game. I was mailing physical press kits, mailing people cassettes and CDs through the mail, because that's just how you did it. It was right before EPK started coming out. But once that technology was being utilized for booking, we started using it. But back then, it was, first of all, making our band look as presentable as possible, so trying to have a photo shoot, having press materials made up, a press kit back then, which I actually had a physical copy, and then eventually EPK, having that materials, doing research on where we could play. We started within the state of Kansas, small towns, schools, churches, bowling alleys, it didn't matter. Any place we could play, I spent most of my day researching these venues and then contacting them and, just presenting the band in a professional manner and getting us booked. So when we were in college and still independent, we played enough shows every weekend where we eventually quit our jobs. So we didn't have to work at Pizza Hut or Walmart or where everyone was working. So we were able to do that because we were playing enough shows. We played, 6 to 8 shows, 10 shows a month while going to college. And eventually we kind of saturated Kansas and started playing the surrounding states. So my idea was for us to be really known in the Midwest, in Kansas and the Midwest, versus playing everywhere and nobody knowing who we are. We tried to be a beacon of light in the Kansas versus little blips all over that no one's going to ever notice or see. It was easier to get noticed in a place like Kansas, where you wouldn't think what's going on in Kansas, but if you're the band in Kansas, it can those waves will get heard in LA and New York.
Yeah.
So when we finished school and we decided, okay, we were playing enough shows that we can actually pay our bills now. And then we got signed during that time. Before we actually really took off nationally with a label, though, I had us booked six weeks on a 6-week tour that we booked into in-house. We did everything in-house. So we left the summer, our last semester of school, and when we called it quits, went on a 6-week tour, and it turned out financially, we didn't make a lot of money, but we didn't lose money, and that's how we were doing things. We had a school bus that we gutted, painted white. We had our own PA system. It wasn't great, but it worked for shows. It helped us book more shows. And, we went on a 6-week tour and came back and just went full time.
Do you think that say the time frame of the tour, that 6-week tour, you think that was sort of pivotal to the trajectory of the band?
It was definitely part of the story because we were able to do it. Okay. We didn't kill each other and implode, which some bands will do when you're together that long. We didn't go home for 6 weeks. We were gone. We were tough enough to do it. We made an impact on people. We made fans then that we still have today. We made some contacts and promoter radio station connections that were vital to Pillar launching. It wasn't like the end all, but it was definitely validation that, hey, we have something here and we can do something with this because we pulled that off.
Right. So you guys were, doing all your own promotion and marketing and anything you could do, schlepping all your own stuff around. And once you got signed shortly thereafter, how did that change the game for you guys, or did it?
So it did. So like I said, being the powerhouse in Kansas and then slowly spreading to surrounding states, it made an impact. Word got out. Now I was always researching what Christian labels are out there, Christian radio stations, but I was still learning that game. I wasn't professional. I'm still not professional. I'm still trying to learn, but back then I didn't know anything. So I was just probing and learning. Eventually, our stuff got in the hands of the members of Audio Adrenaline, who was a huge Christian band in the early 2000s. They were massive. One of the biggest ones, I would say, just below DC Talk and Newsboys. They were probably the number 3 biggest Christian rockish act out there. And they were starting a label at that same time called Flicker Records. They actually had already launched it. Somehow they got a hold of our press kit. And I remember getting a call in our band house. Me, Robin, our original guitar player, had a house near the college where we all lived and practiced. I remember getting a call on our landline from Bob Herdman with Flicker Records. Didn't know who they were at the time. Didn't know who Bob was at the time. And I said, yeah, that's cool. Took their information. Was reading a Christian magazine called Seven Ball. It was big back in the time. There was CCM, and then Seven Ball magazine was a Christian music magazine. And I remember reading it, and it talked about Audio Adrenaline and their new record label, Flicker Records, with founding members Bob Herdman, Will McGinnis, Mark Stewart. And I was like, hey, that's who called. So we jumped on it, overnighted them a CD. Mark got it on the road. They're on tour and said, hey, why don't you guys come up to Wichita, Kansas? We have a show. We want to meet you guys. So we drove to Wichita and met them at some Coliseum and talked, and the rest is history. They signed us. And, at that point, we had a manager now. We have a label now who had a publicist. They have a radio team. It was just the whole whirlwind. We're going to get you in the studio. We're going to re-record your independent album. You got this photo shoot. Who is Toby Mac's sister did our first photo shoot. We had a stylist and brought all these clothes, and it was a fun time because it was all new to us at that level, and they put us on some cool tours that we would not have been able to get on without them. Our first tour was Winter Jam, actually. Winter Jam 25 years ago. So we were playing Coliseums in front of thousands of people, early on, and it was pretty amazing.
Was that just surreal? Going from that and then thinking back, like, gosh, we were out here in Kansas, or back all the way back to when you first got started, playing.
I knew early on, I knew that I was going to do something in music. Once I met the Pillar guys and we were started, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that Pillar was going to do something big. I felt it in my heart. I will say it was God's calling, and I knew it without a shadow of a doubt. I don't know if the other guys did. I think they had, like, I don't know, let's do this. Let's see how it turns out. I knew otherwise, so I was pretty relentless. And if you talk to any other guys and ask me what kind of mindset and work ethic I had back then, you'll hear words like crazy, relentless, like I would get no sleep. I was just on the phone, eventually on the laptop, just 24/7 making moves for us because I believed in what we were doing. Rob has always been anointed. Even then, when he was an early Christian and we started out on the mic, I'm not even talking about singing, but just speaking and relating to people and presenting God's word. He's always been anointed. And I knew back then he will eventually be a pastor. And what does he do nowadays? He's a pastor. Okay. I just believed in what we were doing musically and just spiritually, and what Rob could do on the mic for people. So we were relentless, and it was surreal, but for me, it was kind of like I knew we would do this. I still loved it,
Awesome.
thought it was awesome every time we did something. But for me, I was kind of actually in a bad place mentally. I wish I could have been a little different because I was always working. These great things were happening, and I was already thinking, what's next? Versus living in the moment. Now at 49 years old, I've learned to tame myself a little bit and balance my life better and live in the moment a lot more. Back then, I was tunnel vision and focused and always thinking of the next thing.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Like, what advice would you give, well, any band really, that's growing or exploding into big things, and finding a balance between, like you said, living in the moment versus just zeroed in and missing everything, or a lot of the times it happens the other way around. They're so in the moment that you're missing a lot of
it's a balance, because you have to be careful, because you have to realize that a band is a business. So there's the band side, playing shows, hanging out with people, doing that stuff and just writing music and having fun. But then there's the corporation and the taxes and the bills you have to pay and the finances and trying to make money to support your family so you can keep doing it. They are two separate things, and they both have to be balanced and minded. I will say, when we were younger, I wish we knew now what we know now back then. I think we could have been more financially successful on the business side if we did things a little smarter. We were young and didn't know, and probably didn't save right and invest our things in the right things. So I would say my best advice to young bands trying to make it, or maybe who are just starting to make it, because there's a difference between being independent, doing everything yourself, and then once you get signed and you have a manager and a booking agent. They're different situations. Once you are newly signed, or just at that point where you need to have a team, that's where you have to be really, really wise who your team members are. You have to have the right team that have your best interest in heart, because if they don't, they're not really looking out for your finances. So yeah, we've had experiences where the wrong representation, probably didn't do us justice financially, because maybe we had the wrong team member, maybe out of excitement because, hey, this guy manages this guy, these big bands that we look up to. Hey, we're going to be like those big bands. You get starstruck even with managers and agents and stuff, and you may pick the wrong one that really doesn't have your best interest in heart. So I would just say be very wise, be very prayerful on who you have on your team, and make sure that they are really looking out for your best interest and how your money is spent. And then just because you have a team, don't trust everybody. It could be your best buddy or a family member doing your finances or whatever. But as a business owner, you are a business owner, not just a songwriter. You need to know what's going on with your books, where your money's going. You need to learn that stuff. You don't need to let it consume and take up your whole day, but you need to know what's going on just to make sure things are being fiscally responsible.
Yeah. And it's funny because, I always say, like, money does funny things to people. When money becomes the primary conversation, right? It does a lot of funny things to people. I've heard so many stories with artists and how things take a left-hand turn, all of a sudden, because just like that, we're watching something came up. So tell me,
thankfully, that's never been our problem. We didn't ever have that problem because we never made the millions and millions that would twist someone's mind. I think for me, it was more of a lack of concern of money, because I did all my work for passion. You know what I'm saying? I'm still like that. When I have something on my heart, now it's, fitness, still music, because we're still doing Pillar. Back then it was all Pillar. My passion was so great for our mission, for our fans, and just building the business. It was so much fun. I could care less about how much money I made. I just didn't concern myself with that. My wife took the money and, pay the bills, and I didn't even know what we made. I didn't even care. It was more of that. So I wish that we would have been more, just had a better business sense back then. Obviously we did enough because we were, full-time and supported our families. We're doing things right. But I think if we would have done things a little bit better, we would be in a lot different place financially, even now, today, if we would have did things better 20 years ago.
What's some of the, let's say, hard lessons, spinning off of that idea? Like, what what kinds of things do you think if you guys looked
Having
at
the
that
right
when it comes to the
manager,
financial
having
side?
the right manager that's going to make smart decisions. Okay. I'm not going to downplay or talk bad about any specific person, because certain ones did great things for us and loved us, still might have made a mistake or two. Then there might have been one that probably didn't have our best interest at heart. So having those team members are vital, and making sure that they really care about you and are going to look out for your best interest. You have the wrong manager, they can make some wrong. They can not only just be using your money for things that have nothing to do with you, they could get you into bad deals that don't make sense, in bad situations that you don't want to be in. It's huge. And then when you have to sign contracts with labels and publishing companies and managers, you just really need to look at those contracts, and you probably need to spend some money, invest some money on a very legitimate entertainment lawyer that's going to go through that stuff with a fine tooth comb. I can't say the
Fine
expression.
tooth, yeah,
that
fine
that
tooth
that
comb.
fine tooth
Yeah.
comb, and look for the little things that are going to get you in trouble or cost you a lot of money. So we're not contract lawyers. We don't know, so that kind of stuff is very important. And I wouldn't rely on a lawyer that the label suggests. Don't do that, because they're looking out for them. Or maybe even your manager. It's like if your manager suggests one, you need to vet that lawyer yourself. You need to talk to them yourself. Make sure they're credible. Make sure they're actually working for you and not other parties, because those percentages and those deals, and they can, get you in a bad situation, or you could make a lot less money than you should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important in general, just as a business owner, right? 'Cause you're a business owner at that point, and identifying the things you're not good at, and going, okay, we need to bring in the right people for those things. Like you said, we're playing in the band. We're not contract lawyers,
Yeah.
so find the right people.
Yep. Right.
If you
Huge.
stink at marketing, find people who are going to market for you. Or who are good
Have
at
an
it.
accountant. If you're not great with money, have an accountant that can keep your books. We never got audited, but keeping you from getting audited, making sure your taxes are being paid, make sure your books are being done smart, so you're paying just the taxes you need to pay and not overpay.
Yeah.
That you're getting the right
Yeah.
the write-offs and all the things you need to be doing. So yeah, you need to have a proper accountant. Make sure your corporation, and we had a sub S corporation, having some type of business structure, some type of corporation, depending on your situation, I think is vitally important. Having that corporation own assets is important.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just a lot of things that can make or break you later on down the line once you do get successful. You need to have that foundation of business really strong. The stronger you can have that with dependable team members, the more successful you could be.
Yeah. What's another, say, hard lesson you guys learned along the way that you would have done different, you would do differently now?
I would say within really the most important thing of any band is the band itself and the relationships and the communication. So I would say, and this is stuff we talk about now, and we got some news for you later on in this podcast that I'll be able to talk about more in a little bit. But one of the things that we all wish were better at were communication 20 years ago. We're a bunch of young men. What do men not like to do? Talk about their feelings. It's not something we like to do as men, especially back then. Something make us mad or we hold a grudge, we just hold that stuff in, and eventually it just explodes. It's Pillar never broke up. We just kind of had to take a break. But a lot of it was due to miscommunication. I think if we would have been better communicating when we were younger, Pillar may have never stopped. Maybe we would have never had a break. Maybe we would have been in a completely different place financially if we kept building that business for the last 10 years, 15 years that we've been off. So I would say just be honest with each other, with your bandmates, have communication. If you need to bring in a road pastor or something to help that, do that. Because if you guys don't communicate, you don't get along, there's no business. There is no band. There's no business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you hear that a lot, and I know you guys took a we'll call it a hiatus, for a while, and then reconvened, and I think you stepped out from about 2008 to 2012,
Something like
came
that.
back,
Lester around the
and
same time.
yep, and so talk me through that, like when bands take these long breaks.
Mhm.
You know, some you hear about it. Some of them come back and they come out screaming, you know, and really hit the ground running. Some come back maybe half-heartedly, I guess. You hear about and take me through, like, with you guys, what was some of the motivating factors, or what got you to pick up the torch again, so to speak?
So,
And
so we
let's
had
get
some
with
few
you
years
guys.
apart. We had a few years apart back in 2014, maybe a little bit before that, 2013, 2014. We just started talking again, mending relationships. I would say nowadays we're in a better place friendship wise than we were back then.
Mhm.
Just because we could communicate better. You know, we have more life
Yep.
experience. We got families now. But in 2015, so already a decade ago, we were talking and started writing music again. And we wrote an album called One Love Revolution, released it independently in 2015, and played one show. And Lester actually couldn't be at that show. He had something already. I think it was called Big Ticket Festival up in Michigan. And Lester had something, prior obligation, couldn't do it. He wanted to be there, but he couldn't do it. But we played that one show together, and it was awesome. And, you know, and we were wanting to do more, but things individually with family and stuff just didn't work out with the jobs that some of us had and family. After that, it kind of just simmered down. We were still talking and hanging out. And during a lot of that time, it was like, okay, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? But we just couldn't. It wasn't the right timing yet. It wasn't until about 2023, you know, because some of us kept, hey, when are we going to play a show? When are we going to write a song? We were tapping each other. We had a text chain for years, and we couldn't get the timing right. In 2023, we had those same conversations, and it was finally things lined up where, yes, let's play some shows next year, which was 2024. And it just happened. Actually, we got a call from a festival owner promoter named Ken Ferguson out of Ohio. It's called the Live Productions. They do a live festival. That's one of the festivals we played back in the early 2000s. You know, first the side stage, eventually the main stage. Great relationship with the live festival and a handful of the festivals that ran back then. But Ken would be trying to get us. 23, we're like, oh, sorry, we can't play yet. He kept after us. And finally, when he put an offer in for 24, things lined up and we said, okay, Ken, let's do it. And then because of that show, we booked a second show. So we were going out to do two shows. And then Rob was like, we got to rehearse. We haven't played in 10 years. We haven't played with Lester in 15. So we decided to book some rehearsal dates here in Tulsa where me and Rob live. And then Rob was like, well, if we're going to rehearse and be together, why don't we do a Tulsa show as well? So we booked a show in Tulsa at Battle Creek Church, where Rob's actually one of the pastors, and kind of made it the first show of our coming back. And that happened in June of last year.
Cool. So from your chair and pillar, you know, what would you say, what income streams, let's say, have mattered most over the years? You know, touring, guarantees, festivals, royalties, licensing, side projects. You know, from the band income stream perspective, what kinds of things have mattered the most?
So you got to remember, though, things have shifted a lot from when we were full-time. When we were full-time, there's some years we did 200 shows a year. We were on the road a lot. There's time now, that wasn't all the case, but there's some years we pushed hard. So back then to now, it's completely different games. Back then, yeah, we had show honorariums that were getting at the end pretty awesome for us where we were at as a rock band. They were getting pretty good in the good range, but you got to remember we had manager taking 15, whatever he took off the top. Your booking agent would take 15, 20% off the top, you know, so we were getting small. What really helped us back then and what put a lot of bands, what kept them fed back then was your merch, you know, big merch sales back then. It's a little bit different game now, but back then we do really good on merch sales and that helped us out a lot. Nowadays, surprisingly, here 20 years later, what was a big surprise was digital royalties. You know, I get this email from this place saying, hey, Sound Exchange, I think is what it was. Hey, we have some digital royalties here sitting here for you, Michael. It's been sitting here since 2000 something, sitting there for 15, 20 years, and it's unclaimed. So I was like, okay. And I started talking to him. First, I almost thought it was a scam, but I went through the hoops and it was a real deal. And they had a very large check just sitting there in an account that has been sitting there for each of us, but they were calling me for mine personally. So that was huge. Nowadays, you know, the digital streams is a whole nother realm of income. and we had a very large checks waiting for us because of that. That's huge. Nowadays, we're playing limited shows, so of course we have those honorariums, and we don't have a manager taking money off the top. We're doing it in house, so that saves us a lot of money. We do have a booking agent now, though. I did booking last year and some of the shows this year, all but one this year. But there's some areas we want to get to that I just don't have the time to. I don't want to research anymore. The shows we're doing now, people called us. So if I want us to go play in California, I don't know a promoter in California. So I did get a Christian agency called Faith Artist Agency. She's been doing this for like 20 years to represent us on the booking side. So she will be taking a cut of that, but we don't have a manager cut now. Merchandise has been a different experience for us this time around. I'm not really sure why, but we used to do big numbers back in the day. It's a different game now. Our opening show in Tulsa was pretty big, was huge. But festival dates, the numbers are a lot lower than they used to be. And we kind of heard it's kind of like that across the board,
just saturated.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why. It's just a different time, different game now, but yeah, so this managing your expenses is very important. So for us now, we don't do this for a living anymore. It's for fun now. And we're doing limited shows. So each show offer we get, we have to, first of all, make sure, does the location, does the event, does the money make sense for our families? Okay. If the number's right, it's not that we're greedy. It's just we know what the flights are going to cost. We know what our expenses are to get everybody there and to step away from their family for 2 days to do a show. And once they make sense, this is where Rob comes in. I'm not a money guy. I can negotiate honorariums and do that. I don't like to deal with counting money and expenses. The thing is, Rob's really good at it. He has an administration role at church. He knows the business side in and out. So he's very good with putting together the spreadsheets, itemizing our expenses, making sure taxes are paid. So that kind of role in the band, and if you guys can't do it, you need to have someone that can, is vital. So now when we're getting paid at the end of the thing, we know the taxes are paid, all our crew's paid, everything's right there and easy to see. So everything makes sense.
Right. So any money habit advice you would put out there for the up and coming guys that are starting to make some money, maybe not quite paycheck to paycheck, so to speak, maybe starting to drip in some money that they can finally get ahead a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, stay on top of your spreadsheets, itemize your expenses. So when you do a show, you should know what all your expenses are from that one show. You got to think merchandise. Yeah, you made maybe $5,000 one night. What did the merch cost? What was the shipping cost? What's the merch fee at the venue that night? You need to know all your expenses. So you should have that spreadsheet already and plugged in. And at the end of the night, just plug those numbers in so you know what you actually made, what you owe, and just how it looks. Okay, if you're not keeping track of that, there's a lot of guessing going on and things could go the wrong way. So that's really important. Another thing is just spend within your means. We do have expenses as a band business. You have to pay crew. You have merchandise fees. There's expenses that have to be paid. Try to minimize them. Do stuff that makes sense. I would say on some tours back in the day, we're sitting on the bus and we have the lighting guy that we hired. We have the sound guy that we hired. We have this guy we hired. We got a merch guy that we hired. And I'm sitting there looking like we got 5 or 6 employees on here that we're all paying. Plus all this crazy production, did we need to spend this much money? Maybe we did, but we probably could have, maybe spent a little bit less on production, back in the day and saved a little bit more. So kind of just spend your money wisely and live within your means for the betterment of your band.
You hear that quite a bit. And when I talk to people and we sit down and look through their budgets or, whatever you're looking through on income and expenses, right, is in the end. I say more often than not, we get to the end of that and they say, oh, that's the response. Oh, is in this realization of, oh, that's where all my money went. That's why I didn't have any left really for myself.
Yeah. For the Fireproof tour, we had to have pyrotechnics.
Yes.
Had to have the pyrotechnics. Now, how much money did we spend on having a certified pyro guy there for a whole tour? The amount of all the stuff he blew up every night for the tour, it was cool, but we probably could have saved tens of thousands of dollars on that tour not having it. maybe the other guys won't
Yep.
agree, but there's little things that we probably could have done differently, you know. And nowadays, so for right now, a thing we're still trying to figure out is the merch situation, because it's a different situation. So something that we're looking to do for our website moving forward is to make less money on each product, but have a print on demand model.
Mm-hmm.
So up until now, we had some new designs sent to our web store. There's boxes probably sitting in their warehouse of paid for merch just sitting there, you know, and we're like, man, this kind of doesn't make sense. So this is something we're going to try now to see if it works better financially is, and they're out there, it's easy to do now, is have a print on demand. Someone orders an X large shirt, they print that shirt, mail it to them. We make less, but there's not tens of thousands of dollars sitting on shelves just waiting and collecting dust.
Yeah, sitting on inventory too long, and then
we have a better idea now.
Yeah.
After doing a few shows nowadays, we can make projections. We know if X amount of people play, we're going to make about X amount per head on merch. We've done enough shows now that we have that number. So now when we order for shows, we're not over ordering, you know. So sometimes we may have not enough merch because we didn't do our projections right. We're losing money on the table by not having enough, or we order way too much and we got thousands sitting in boxes that already paid for. So just doing projections and getting that dialed in so you're ordering the right amount of stuff is also a game changer. I remember back in the day, sometimes, we would way over order. We had a storage unit that just was filled at times with $50,000 of merch just sitting in there.
Mm-hmm.
We eventually sold it, of course, but I mean, we could have handled that better, probably our projections and our inventory, and probably been a little bit better financially if we would have done that right.
Okay, so albums like say, Fireproof, The Beckoning, you know, they still have a tail, I would say. So what should artists know about building songs and records that keep working long after release, if that makes sense?
You know, that's a hard one because as a band member and as a band, you know, we hear other bands and the great songs they write, and it's hard for musicians like us or any musician. We'll hear that other band like, man, I wish we played a song like that, you know, because we're still fans of music and we hear other bands, our friends or bands we don't know, and we're like, man, they're good. Why can't we do stuff like that? So, you know, we really just wrote what was on our heart and what we felt. You know, Noah was just a genius with his riffs, and Rob handled all the lyrics and melodies, and we just wrote what was on our heart, man. And at the time when we wrote the stuff, we weren't like, hey, this is going to be a timeless song. It's just a song that we had fun writing and thought was going to do great. The only exceptions were when we wrote Fireproof. There's 3 exceptions. When we wrote Fireproof, I remember some of our band members saying, hey, this is going to be a hit. If this song's not a hit, I don't know what to do. On Fireproof, I remember that. I remember when we were on tour, I think we were in Memphis, and Noah came up with the Frontline riff. And then Lester joined in and we were jamming the Frontline riff. It wasn't a song yet. I remember everybody's head in the venue turning. Other bands that were touring with us are like, what is that? That is good. We had an inkling that was going to turn into something awesome. And the third time I knew we wrote a timeless song was Bring Me Down. We were in the studio. We recorded the music for Bring Me Down, which we just thought was awesome. But we didn't know what Rob was going to do. He didn't have his stuff wrote yet. And we had a show. So the rest of us left to go do the show, travel there in the bus. Rob stayed in the studio to record these vocals that we had not heard nothing of because he didn't have them. It wasn't that he was holding them from us. We didn't have nothing wrote. And he flew in and met us at the bus, and he had a CD, and he said, this is it. We went to the back of the bus. He put that CD in, and we heard Bring Me Down with the vocals for the first time. You can't break. We were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. We knew it was going to be a hit, and that song turned out to be a big hit, you know. The other songs were just fun and, you know, writing what was on the heart.
I remember so many of these songs coming out and just the same thing, right? It was, as a fan reaction going, wow, you know, that's so cool. And I think that's, like you said, you get that feeling early on. You're like, this is going to be a big one.
Yeah.
As that rolls
and
out.
we played just in Dallas just a couple nights ago. I know this won't come out for a while after we're talking, but we just played a couple nights ago our third show this year. We played New York, we played Germany, we just played the Dallas House of Blues. You know, Frontline goes on, Bring Me Down. People just went nuts. They went nuts
into it.
still has the same effects, you know, which was a lot of fun.
That's great. That's great. All right. Well, speaking of big things, you guys have a big thing coming up here pretty soon, right? Tell me
Yes,
about it.
sir. So when we came back last year, we had the idea of, hey, let's film a documentary. And actually, the idea was my son. My oldest son, his name is Caden. He's 21 years old. He's a film student, and he is already an award-winning filmmaker. You know, he writes and directs short films. He's done a previous documentary. He goes to film festivals. He's won film festivals. He's been on big movie sets. He does a lot of big stuff for a 21-year-old. Very talented. And he came to me last year, and he actually had the idea for a long time. But when he knew we were coming together, he goes, Dad, let's make a documentary. And I said, okay, this is going to be all you. As far as like we're not going to look over your shoulder and tell you what to do. This is your project. You film it and tell the story that you think you want to tell. I had that much faith in him because I knew his ability. I know how smart he is and how good he is at what he does. So he filmed our rehearsals, which was 2 days of rehearsals, band interviews, the full Tulsa show. He flew to Ohio and filmed 2 shows with us. He collected stuff from the early days, like scanned photos from 1999, found VHS tapes and old DVDs and digitized them all and had everything he could get his hands on. And he made this documentary, and we hadn't seen a peep of it, not a single minute of it, until a couple nights ago. We had a premiere screening at the Dallas House of Blues, the packed house, and he played it, and it turned out amazing. So we were releasing this documentary. It's not released yet. We're planning to release it this coming December, about the time this podcast probably drops. It's called Pillar Beyond the Frontline. And what I'll say about it is it's not just a rockumentary. Yes, it talks about how Pillar started, how we grew. It talks about how we disbanded, and then talks about how we came back together. But more than that, it talks about our heart and the effects that Pillar had on people and what we meant to people. You know, so I'll just say, when I watch it a couple nights ago for the first time, just about everyone in the house, there's times where we got teary-eyed. It's very emotional. Yeah. It has a lot of heart to it, and it's very emotional. And I'm so excited for our fans and anybody that liked Pillar to see this when it drops. It's 55-minute runtime, and it was a joy to watch. My son did an amazing job on it.
That's great. Well, I for one, am excited to see it, and I know it'll be very nostalgic for a lot of people, right? I'm sure you guys watching it for the first time, even.
Yeah,
you didn't really know kind of how it was going to get laid out.
He had stuff on there. I turned to him while we were watching it. Where did you get that footage? There's footage on there that I hadn't seen, or maybe it's just been so long I forgot. But there's stuff on there that I hadn't even seen before from the early days. So when this comes out, pillarmusic.com will be the hub where you want to go for information. We are going to release physical copies on DVD and Blu-ray that will be autographed, along with a new poster, new shirt. And then we will have streaming options as well, where it can be rented or streamed off our website. So I don't know the particulars yet. We're still figuring that out, but it will all be on pillarmusic.com. Right now, the plan is to release it in early December for the holidays.
Awesome. I know everyone's going to be excited about that. All right. Every show we wrap up with what we call final riffs. It's kind of our lightning round for listeners. Short questions, quick answers,
Okay.
Really just to take us home. So, Michael, I'm going to fire off a handful. First thing that comes to mind. Doesn't have to be one-word answers, but, you'll get the idea.
I'm ready. Sounds awesome.
All right. When specifically did you get your first bass you owned?
My first bass was high school. I played guitar first, and my school jazz band needed a jazz player, and I was friends with the current jazz player that graduated, and I thought that'd be cool. So I bought my first bass. It was a Padula, green Padula, and I learned so I could play in the jazz band at high school.
How fun. All right, one Pillar song you never get tired of playing. Can't say all of them.
Underneath It All.
Underneath It All.
Underneath It All is one of our heavy songs that just completely rocks live. My neck still hurts. Played it 2 nights ago, and my neck hurts really, really bad today.
That's funny. All right, most underrated venue you love.
Man, that's a hard one because all those venues we played were so long ago. I can't remember most of them.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say,
Do you have like,
I'll go old school. I'll go old school for our old school fans. It's one that pops to my mind. It may not be the venue to answer this, but it's one of them for sure. It's called the New Earth Coffee House in Kansas City. I don't even know if it's there anymore. It may not be there anymore, but back in the early 2000s, it was a hot spot for bands that came through in Kansas City. And I remember having some amazing shows at the New Earth Coffee House.
what's the loudest show you've ever been part of?
Man, we played this thing early on called the Luis Palau Festival. Luis Palau was an evangelist. I think he passed away now, but evangelist. And he put us on one of his big events in Southern California. It was on the beach outside, going down the beach. And I couldn't see the end of people. There was 100,000 people there with jumbotrons spaced football fields down so the 100,000 people down the beach could see it. It's the biggest crowd I'd ever seen and ever played in front of. Next to that, Parachute Festival in New Zealand. Those people went absolutely insane. I remember they had, in preparation for the madness, they had ambulances already on hand for the people from the mosh pit and crowd surfing. It was insane.
Any single funny story that sticks out for you on tour that was just kind of a, oh my gosh, I'll never forget that?
Gosh. There's a few of them that pop to mind that I can't talk about. Not that they're like dirty or crazy. They're just, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Right. The good ones I can't talk about.
Those are the good ones, right? All right. Any particular touring stories?
I got one. I got a safe one I could talk about. I can't remember where this was, but I remember a promoter got us a limo to take us to the airport, which we thought was cool. We don't ask for that. It was definitely a treat for us. We thought it was a cool thing. We get to the airport, we get out of this limo, then there's this like little cruddy car in front of us, and this other guys get out of it, and we're getting out of a limo. Those other guys getting out of their little car was Switchfoot. And
oh, really? Yeah.
Who we're friends with and they're getting out, going home, and Pillar walks out of this limo. I always thought that was funny because we looked up to them, they were huge. Our buddy Switchfoot, and we're getting out of the limo. I thought that was a good one.
They're looking at you sideways going, hey.
We had the opportunity to tour with them throughout Australia for 2 weeks years back. And it was just an awesome experience because they're the coolest guys and they're doing just great music and they're so friendly and humble. And that was one of our favorite little runs with the Australian tour with them.
That's fun. All right. Maybe one road habit that costs little but pays big, so to speak, while you're on the road.
Man, going to the gym. We were kind of known as the gym band there for a while. In our first bus, we had so many weights under the bus on one side that the bus tilted permanently. And we would pull it out at Walmart parking lots or behind festivals. And all of us would work out. Me, Lester, hardcore, but Noah and Rob jumped in a lot. We just all like to be fit. It helped us with our stage shows and something we enjoyed, So, and once we got on tour and stopped carrying our weights underneath, our first stop, we'd get there. Me and Lester would wake up. Hey, where's the gym at? Our tour manager would have it ready for us, tell us where to go. We'd either walk there or get a cab and go to the gym and work out. Just kind of keeps you healthy and helps you put on better shows, if you're in shape.
Sure. That's fun. All right. Single most impactful song that you've been a part of putting together?
There's a couple, and I don't know. For me, it's not what I think's impactful. It's hearing from the fans songs that help them. I know the song Further From Myself. I've had several individuals very recently even talking about how that song saved their life, where they were ready to commit suicide. Like it was happening right then. And then the song came on and they heard the song and it changed their mind. Recently, we just heard that story. And I've heard that before too, that song has literally saved lives. I've heard our song Smiling Down has had a profound effect on people that's lost loved ones, family members, or friends. So it's the slower songs. And I'm sure there's a lot of other songs there's other stories, but I know those two songs I've heard a lot of fan stories from. And some of those stories are mentioned and are shared in our documentary coming out.
That's great. I love stories like that. I think really get to the heart of music, I think. it really, I love the quote, Hans Christian Andersen, right? He said, where words fail, music speaks. And for me, right, that's why music always been a big part of my life, right? You just don't have words. You hear a song, you're like, yes, that's exactly how I would say it, you know?
Yeah, music powerful. Music is very powerful, and while we're imperfect men, God used us to write some songs that are speak to people, despite our mistakes and who we are as people. God has been able to use the music that we produce to have a profound effect. And just at this age and our coming back, we just really appreciate it now. We appreciate what we've been able to do. We appreciate the impact we've had on people, and we appreciate the fans that just support us and share those stories with us. It was meaningful back then. It's more meaningful now, though, now that it's not a job anymore. It's something that we just do for fun, and we get to do it now. It's a privilege for us, and it's just so meaningful to us.
Yeah, that's great. Michael, well, thanks for making the time and for sharing so much with us today. I know there's a lot of artists listening that will learn something, and that's why we do this show, is just having so many different perspectives and ideas from so many different people. It's just people can listen and watch and really just take some things home each and every episode. And I know there was some stuff today that would do that for you. So yeah, thank you for being on the show. We will drop links in the show notes for you listeners, and you can follow along. If today's conversation helped you think differently about the business side of your music, head on over to my website at 1024wealth.com/music and grab a free ebook called A Musician's Guide to Infinite Banking. Imagine funding the next project while your savings keeps compounding. When you're ready to talk about how a money system can work for you and your world, let's talk. Let's help you out and see what we can figure out for you. So subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Share this with one musician who needs it. And I will
thank
see
you so much, Jason.
Michael, thank you.
Thank you for having me. You can check Pillar on pillarmusic.com. Yes. My personal socials are Wittig Works for Instagram and everything else. And Jason can maybe drop that link. It's something for you guys. But Wittig Works, you can reach out to me personally if you have any questions or want to chat about anything that we talked about today on the podcast as well.
Awesome. Do it. We'll drop all these links in the description, and you guys will be able to find everything Pillar Music. I can't wait for this documentary to come out, and we'll check it out. So subscribe in your favorite apps and share with the musician who needs to hear this. And I will see you guys next time. Until then, keep your money working and your music